Channel, Forgotten Heroes. Voice, NUS binaural at rate 0%. Default. Target length, 13 minutes. Almost equals 1800 words at 145 WPM. Style, dramatic restrained, omniscient narrator with occasional present tense placement. Sources cited, Descriptio. Ambrose, Stephen E., Band of Brothers, E Company, 506th Regiment, 101st Airborne from Normandy to Hitler's Eagle's Nest. Simon and Schuster, 1992. Winters, Richard D. and Cole C. Kingseed. Beyond Band of Brothers, The War Memoirs of Major Dick Winters. Berkeley Caliber, 2006. Compton, Lynn Buck, with Marcus Brotherton. Call of Duty, My Life Before, During, and After the Band of Brothers. Berkeley Caliber, 2008. U.S. Army Center of Military History, 101st Airborne Division Operational Records, Normandy Campaign. A Hedgerow in Normandy. June 6, 1944. The field beyond the hedgerow is unremarkable. Flat, green. A few cows were grazing here yesterday. But this morning, behind the tree line on the far side of that field, for German 105mm guns are firing directly into the causeways where American troops are waiting off Utah Beach. Every 90 seconds, another shell arcs over the bocage and lands among men who have nowhere to go. A lieutenant crouches behind the hedgerow with 12 paratroopers. They have been on the ground for less than 6 hours. Most of them landed scattered across the wrong drop zones in the dark. They found each other by clicking tiny metal crickets. They have no artillery support, no armor, no communication with battalion. They have rifles, grenades, and each other. The lieutenant studies the gun positions. He counts the enemy. He draws a plan in the dirt with a stick. Then he looks at his men and says very quietly, "Follow me." His name is Richard Winters. He is 26 years old. And what happens next will be studied at West Point for the next 80 years. Before the war, there was nothing about Dick Winters that suggested a future warrior. He was born in 1918, in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, farm country, Amish buggies on the roads, the smell of fresh-cut hay drifting through screen doors. His father was a foreman at a construction supply company. His mother was the kind of woman who ironed everything, including the pillowcases. Dick was quiet, painfully quiet. He played some basketball in high school, but he was not the star. He went to Franklin and Marshall College, where he studied economics and worked odd jobs to pay tuition, pouring concrete in the summer, refereeing basketball games for pocket money. He did not drink. He did not smoke. He went to church. His classmates would later say they remembered almost nothing about him, because there was almost nothing to remember. He was pleasant. He was invisible. When the draft notice came in 1941, Winters could have waited to be called. Instead, he enlisted, not out of bloodlust, not out of patriotism that needed a megaphone. He simply believed it was the right thing to do, and he did not require an audience for doing the right thing. He volunteered for the paratroopers because they were the hardest unit to get into, and he wanted to know if he could pass. The training was at Camp Toccoa, Georgia in the summer heat, runs up Kahi Mountain with full packs, 3 miles up, 3 miles down until men vomited and quit. Winters did not vomit. He did not quit. He ran Kawahi until Kawahi became something his body simply did without complaint. He was assigned to Easy Company, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne Division. He was made a platoon leader. Within months, the men noticed something unusual about him. He never raised his voice. He never cursed. He never drank with them. And yet, when he gave an order, every man in the room moved. Not because they feared him, because they trusted him. He had done every drill first. He had carried every pack. He had never asked a man to do something he had not already done himself. The commanding officer of Easy Company was a man named Herbert Sobel. Sobel was a screamer. Sobel punished men for infractions real and invented. Sobel ran the company with fear. Winters watched this without comment. He trained his platoon quietly, on his own terms, building competence underneath Sobel's chaos. When Sobel tried to have Winters court-martialed on a fabricated charge, Winters accepted the hearing with the same silence he brought to everything else. The charge was dropped. Sobel was transferred. Easy Company breathed. On the night of June 5, 1944, Winters climbed into a C-47 transport plane with the men he had trained for 2 years. Below them was the English Channel. Ahead of them was France. He carried an M1 rifle, a map, a compass, and a photograph of his parents. He had written them a letter that afternoon, just in case. The jump was chaos. Flak tore through the sky. Planes scattered. Paratroopers landed miles from their targets. Tangled in trees. Drowned in flooded fields the Germans had deliberately inundated. In the dark, Winters clicked his cricket and listened. Click-clack, click-clack. One by one, men from Easy Company found him. By dawn, he had gathered a fragment of his unit. Not enough, but enough. Then the order came from battalion. A battery of 4 German guns, 105mm howitzers, dug into fixed positions at a farmstead called Brécourt Manor, was shelling the beach exits. Thousands of men from the 4th Infantry Division were pinned on the causeways. Someone had to take those guns out. Winters had 13 men. The German position was defended by approximately 50 soldiers in a trench system connected by hedgerows. He had no mortar support, no machine gun suppression that would last. He had surprise. He had speed. He had a plan. He split his tiny force into fire teams. 2 men would lay covering fire from the hedgerow. Winters and 2 others would rush the first gun position along the trench line. Once it was taken, another team would leapfrog to the second gun. Then the third. Then the fourth. Each gun, one at a time, methodical and violent and precise. He went first. Winters sprinted across the open field, dropped into the trench, and killed the first German gunner with his rifle. His men followed. They cleared the first gun. Then the second. Carwood Lipton laid fire from the flank. Bill Garnera threw grenades into the third position. They were outnumbered nearly 4-1, and they were winning because Winters had given them a plan simple enough to execute under fire and then had executed it alongside them. By the time they reached the 4th gun, reinforcements from Dog Company had arrived. The battery was silenced. The causeways opened. The men coming off Utah Beach could move inland. Winters had lost 1 man killed. He sat behind the hedgerow after it was done and wrote notes in a small journal. He did not celebrate. He did not talk about what he had done. He assigned a perimeter watch, checked ammunition counts, and moved on to the next objective. The assault on Brécourt Manor was later entered into the curriculum at West Point as a textbook example of a small unit attack on a fixed position. Winters never applied to have it included. Someone else submitted the report. The months that followed tested him in different ways. In Holland, during Operation Market Garden, Easy Company fought through Eindhoven and Nijmegen. Winters, now a captain, was promoted to battalion executive officer, a desk job technically. He carried the desk job into the field. At the crossroads near Foy, he found himself leading a bayonet charge across an open dike because there was no one else to lead it. He ran across that dike under machine gun fire and felt a bullet pass through his boot without hitting skin. He did not mention it in his report. Then came Bastogne. December of 1944. The Ardennes. The Germans launched their last great offensive, and the 101st Airborne was rushed to the crossroads town of Bastogne to hold it. They arrived without winter clothing, without adequate ammunition, without food beyond what they carried in their pockets. The temperature dropped below 0. The forests around Bastogne were shelled continuously. Trees exploded into splinters that killed as efficiently as shrapnel. Winters walked the line. Every day, every foxhole, checking on his men. He had almost no supplies to give them. What he gave them instead was presence. He stood where they crouched. He froze where they froze. When men told him they could not take another night, he did not give speeches. He said, "I know," and then he stayed. Bastogne held. The siege was broken on December 26 when Patton's Third Army punched through from the south. Easy Company had not broken. Neither had Winters. He finished the war at Berchtesgaden, Hitler's mountain retreat in the Bavarian Alps. He stood on the terrace of the Eagle's Nest, looked out at the mountains, and felt nothing like triumph. In his journal, he wrote only about wanting to go home. Richard Winters went home to Pennsylvania. He married a woman named Ethel. He bought a farm. He raised livestock and grew crops and fixed fences with his own hands. He did not join veterans organizations. He did not attend reunions for years. When reporters called, he declined. When book publishers wrote, he did not reply. For decades, the men of Easy Company kept in touch with each other. Christmas cards, phone calls, occasional visits. Winters answered their calls. He wrote them back. But he would not talk to the public about the war. He believed the men who did not come home deserved the attention more than he did. Then, in 1992, Stephen Ambrose published Band of Brothers, a history of Easy Company built from interviews with the surviving veterans. Winters had cooperated reluctantly, and only because his men had asked him to. The book became a bestseller. In 2001, HBO adapted it into a miniseries that became one of the most acclaimed war productions ever made. Winters was portrayed as the moral center of Easy Company. The show made him famous. He did not want to be famous. He answered some letters from viewers. He visited some schools. He spoke quietly and only when asked directly. A young man once wrote to him, asking if he was a hero. Winters wrote back, "No," he said, "but I served in a company of heroes." He died on January 2, 2011, at the age of 92, on his farm in Hershey, Pennsylvania. His funeral was private. His grave marker carries only his name, his rank, and the dates. There is a statue of him now, near the beaches of Normandy, a lone figure in bronze, looking out over the fields where he once ran toward the guns with 12 men behind him. The plaque beneath does not list his medals. It carries only the words he spoke most often to the men of Easy Company. Follow me. If the story moved you, subscribe to follow the Untold Front. New stories every week.